All right, starting a new unit today called Solving Systems of Equations. And the first two lessons, we're just going to learn two other methods of graphing besides graphing equations in y equals mx plus b form. Y equals mx plus b form is the easiest form to graph in because that's called slope-intercept form, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. And we know we first graph the y-intercept on the y-axis, and then we use the slope to find another point on the line before we connect them to graph it. Another form of linear equations is called standard form, and that's when the equation is written in ax plus by equals c form. It simply means the equation's in a different order. So this is an example of that form, 2x plus 4y equals 8. Now it's not easy to see the slope and y-intercept in this form, so we're going to learn two ways to graph this to make it a little easier. The first method is called the intercept method. I also like to call this one the raccoon eyes method. And basically what we do is we find the x and y intercepts. And we do that by making two sets of eyes. And I call this the raccoon eyes method because it kind of looks like a raccoon. We set up 2 points, putting the zeros in the middle. So this 0 is in the y position, because remember points are x, y. And this 0 is in the x position, because remember points are x, y. So this is telling you I'm going to plug a 0 into the equation for y and figure out what x is. And then for this point, I plug a 0 in for the x and I figure out what y is. This method is really quite simple. So the first thing you do is you make the eyes. Remember the eyes go in the middle. And then this 0 is a y, so it goes in for this y. And what always happens is that 4 times this 0 is going to be 0. So that term basically disappears from the equation. So all I have left is 2x equals 8. And I just divide both sides by 2. X is 4. So I put a 4 here. This 0 is in the x position, so I put this 0 in for x. Again, 2 times 0 will be 0, so that disappears. So I'm left with 4y equals 8. I divide both sides by 4, and I get y equals 2. So I put the 2 in that position. Now I simply graph those 2 points, 4, 0, and 0, 2. 4, 0 is I go 4 to the right on the x-axis. That is called the x-intercept. And I graph 0, 2, which is start at 0, go up 2. That's the y-intercept. And now when I connect those 2 points, that gives me my straight line. I can find the slope off this line pretty easily like we did last chapter by counting. So down 2 over 4 would be the slope. So what is the slope of this line? Down 2 over 4, which of course I can reduce to -1/2. So using the intercept method, you make the raccoon eyes, plug this 0 in for y, this 0 in for x, and solve both separately. That'll give us the 2 intercepts, which I can graph easily, and then draw the line between them. Let's do another example. So on the back of the notes, again, the first step is to draw the eyes. And remember, the zeros go in the middle. This 0 is a y, so I plug it in here, and it'll be -4 times 0 is just 0. What I'm left with is 5x equals 20. Divide both sides by 5, x is 4, so this is a 4. This 0 is in the x position, so I put a 0 here. 5 times 0 would be 0. I'm left with -4y equals 20. Notice the negative sign stays with the 4. Then divide both sides by -4. I get -5. So now I graph these 2 intercepts, 4, 0, which is right here on the x-axis, and 0, -5, which is down here on the y-axis. That's the y-intercept. Connect those 2 points. That gives me my line. I could count the slope if I need it. Starting here, I'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and over 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope would be 5/4. For my last example, Again, you always start with the i's. So the 0 goes in for this y. That means this term is 0. I'm left with negative 2x equals 6. Divide both sides by negative 2. I get negative 3. So that goes here. This 0 is in the x position. So when I plug it in, I get 0 here. Left with 3y equals 6. Divide both sides by 3. I get y equals 2. So that goes here. So now I graph negative 3, 0, and 0, 2. And again, I could count the slope if I need it, up 2 over 3. So just remember, using this technique, you're going to make the raccoon eyes first, or making the intercepts. Plug in 0 for y, solve it for x. Plug in a 0 for x, and solve it for y. You end up getting the two intercepts, graph them, connect them with a line, and we are done.